the way. Hey, honestly, how hard can it be to meet one decent alien species in this rotten galaxy? Every single one I have met has either tried to, beat me up, or shoot me, or eat me, or mate with me, whatever. And trust me, that last bit wasn't a good thing at the time, alright? Seriously. Is it really that hard just to meet one nice... I see. You look like a nice neighbouring sort of fellow. Pleased to make your acquaintance. Oh, for God's sake. Hey guys, welcome to another Broken Meeple review, and today I'm excited to talk about this new game. It's all nice here and you can't see it yet, but, well, you know the title from the video, what am I getting at? This one is, oh yes, need no introduction, Empires of the Void, 2nd edition. Basically, the history of this game is that I once owned the 1st edition to this. A long time ago, back when I was in the flat doing old Broken Meeple videos, Ryan Lockett did, I think it was his first game, I'm not sure, but Empires of the Void. It was a space game, and it was meant to be kind of like a shorter version of the Space 4X epic games. We're not talking necessarily, TI3 Lite, or TI4 Lite, I guess in this case, but we're talking, a 4X style game in space that doesn't take 4 hours plus. Well, it sort of succeeded. It was more a 3X game than a 4X game, but it certainly felt like a cool space epic, and it didn't usually take more than 2 hours for the game to finish. Essentially what you did was you were in this galaxy full of all these planets with different alien races on it. And you had your ships, you were part of a faction with your own special board and player powers and tech. And you moved around this map, investigating all the planets, getting resources, and either choosing to, invade or ally with the races in particular. By invading them, you got resources and victory points and stuff like that. But if you allied with them, you managed to use a unique unit that they had. Usually like a technology or a spaceship that only you could build. And so they were like your friends, and you could go off and invade other systems. You could go attack other players. You could level up technologies. It was great and I loved it. Such a good game. Why don't I own it anymore? Well, 2 reasons. One, this, but also it was getting a little bit hard to bring it to the table and slightly unwieldy, because as much as I loved the game, it wasn't exactly flawless. The base game did have some balance issues and it was quite unwieldy. I had to get a print and play expansion called Key to the Universe. I once put it at the top of a must essential expansion list, because it really does fix everything that was wrong with the 1st edition of Empires of the Void, but you have to print it out, laminate it, chuck away a bunch of tokens from the base game. It pretty much redesigned the entire game. It was a big change, but I loved it. And when I heard that Ryan Lockett was doing a 2nd edition version, woohoo, I was excited. I really wanted this one to come out. And I like a lot of Ryan Lockett's other games, even though there are still some I have not played. Still yet to play Islebound, want to try that one, and still yet to play The Ancient World. I hear that's pretty good as well, but City of Iron, Above and Below was pretty good, Near and Far, I love. The original Empires of the Void. Ryan Lockett is kind of on a roll right now with producing solid games that stand the test of time. And they look beautiful because he basically does the design, the art, the publishing. He does it all himself. He's one of these rare people who can do it. But enough gushing. Let's actually talk about the game in general. So I'm not going to go too much into detail over what's changed between 1st edition and 2nd edition, because I'll bet that a lot of you probably have not heard of or even played the 1st edition. So I'm just going to treat this as its own thing, okay? Because there are some similarities, but there's also some significant changes as well. So I'm just going to treat it as its own box. So with Empires of the Void 2, as I mentioned a bit earlier, you are progressing around this map. It is the edge of a galaxy and all of you are new to this area and you're exploring. You have a map which is randomized every game with uninhabited and inhabited planets. The small uninhabited ones basically have some flip down tile that you can find and gain some bonus and some resources, but mainly you control them to get a few points. The inhabited ones have the alien races on them though, and you can decide whether to, again, to be friends or invade them. If you invade them, you have to fight them directly, but if you succeed, you get control points and you get their resource. If you make friends with them, you get to recruit their units to your cause as, attack bonuses and various other abilities for the future, as well as get victory points for being allying with them. So you can choose which way you want to do it and kind of tell your own space epic story. But while you're doing this, essentially the turn sequence is an action selection. You have 5 actions to pick from building, to researching, to moving and attacking, to playing cards, etc. And a player will pick an action, and then the other players have a choice of whether they want to follow the action, i.e. copy it, or do their own thing, which costs command points, it's another resource you have to mitigate, or just refresh all their board, collect income, and refresh all their tracks. So the downtime is mitigated to a pretty good extent. More detail on that later. But the turn sequences will progress like that. You'll be exploring planets, you'll be leveling up technologies, you have your own unique board of techs with some overlap, but not, too much overlap, so there is still some differentiation there. You'll be building buildings across the planets that you have already explored and controlled, and on your world ship, which is like this big mothership. It's a cool miniature that you send around the board. I will stipulate now, actually, this one that I've been playing was on Kickstarter. I don't know the full details of what is different between the retail and the Kickstarter version, but from what I can tell, other than maybe just a few extra cards and maybe one extra race, it's mostly just cosmetic. The retail version should still be as good an experience as this one is. Well, spoiler alert. But as you're going through, you're playing cards also from your hand, which have multiple uses. Not only do they have a special ability, they might also have, a mission for you to do, like go do this particular, pick up and delivery game, or, go to this particular spot and beat down on this enemy. If you do that, you get this bonus. Or it may just be a special power. But on top of that, the power rating, which is a big number in the corner of the cards, dictates an additional bonus you'll get in combat, and it's kind of like the resource for performing other actions. Total up the values, do it. So you've got a hand of cards to mitigate as well. Gameplay continues in this fashion of choosing an action and deciding whether you want to copy that commander player's turn or do your own thing. Constantly round and round until you get to the end, which is dictated by that deck of cards running out and then a final round. Once you do that, well, have a guess. Whoever's got the most victory points wins. Of course! So that's a general overview of the game, and there's a bit more to it than that, but I'd have to add a few extra minutes to this video in order to actually go through it all. But essentially, what it is trying to do is be a space epic game that doesn't take hours and hours and hours. Does it succeed? Pretty much for the most part, yes. Now you can argue that it's not quite 4x, it's more 3x, because you have a few tiles that you flip over on uninhabited planets that's like, ooh, I get an extra building, or I get this bonus, or an extra victory point if I keep control of it. Some stuff like that's cool, but you know where the planets are to begin the game with. They're randomized, but you still know where they are. They're not like face down and you flip them. So the exploration factor is a little bit low in this. So it's mainly a 3x game. You are certainly exploiting races, you are certainly expanding your empire, and you are definitely going out and exterminating races or other players. There is definitely player-to-player combat. But, let's talk about first the component quality. Whoo-wee, this looks nice. You good looking. The artwork in this, so I know I keep gushing about this guy, but this is one of my favorite artists. Ryan Locket's art style is just kind of like this weird mix of animated and cutesy with it's got a semi-serious vibe, but it looks like something that could be its own Netflix animated series, this entire universe. And it's a similar style to what you've seen in Above and Below and Near and Far and some of his other games, and it's brought to the forefront here. But everything just looked good. I mean, look at this cover. That is one gorgeous cover for a space game. And when you look at the map with all the coloured planets, all the sort of the terrain types you can see on the big ones, the races, they've got the full sort of mugshot portrait of them in the corner. You've got the Worldship miniatures, you've got the cards with unique artwork on them. It's so gorgeous. Art in this is sublime. The component quality, there is nothing tacky. Now, the Worldship miniature I'm not sure if that's a retail version or a Kickstarter one, but You know, they look great, the little plastic miniatures, the cards are decent quality, you know, the dice, yeah, you've got some dice to throw and they're just standard D6s, but they look nice and they're decent quality D6s, you know, they're not going to be chipping anytime soon. The board is nice and thick, the tiles that the planets the inhabited ones on are nice thick tiles. Everything has just got a high quality feel to this game. And granted, it does have a bit of a price tag to kind of justify that, but it's not so expensive that it's kind of like, oh my god, this is like completely ripping you off. Nah, you're getting what you pay for both in gameplay but also in the component quality here. So back to the feel of the game, if you're like me and you're into thematic experiences, then you'll have a field day with this, because this really does encourage you, not necessarily to roleplay your empire, but to get into that theme of being your own space empire and telling your own story. You know, you've got about 8 or 9 races on the board, and you're not going to engage with them all. You certainly won't be able to attack them all. You won't be able to, you know, be allies with them all. I mean, you could actually just go off on a complete rampage and attack every single planet you find, but, you know, I suppose that's fun to an extent. But, you know, you want some of those allies as well, because some of the abilities they give you or the units may actually help. You know, all right, this game I want to go and attack everyone. I'm going to just go out and straight up murder people, get points for winning battles, and get resources that way. Ooh, that race has got some pretty mean-looking golem-type creatures there. They're very good in combat. You know what? Let's be friends. Let's go out on a massive empire, you know, warmongering mission, ally with you, conquer everyone else. You can do it how you like, and it's like you're telling your own sort of Star Wars-esque story, you know, your own Star Trek story, Star Wars story, whatever star, you know, space film you want to put in. But the theme is very immersive. There's definitely room here for anybody who likes a space game and wants more than just simply mechanics for the sake of mechanics. I can get immersed in this theme very well, particularly with the cards, because the cards will have things like, you know, some of them, they'll have unique cards for missions and for special abilities, which makes sense. Like, I'll play this card and it says I invest in the wealthy corporations of Rock Empire, or whatever they're called, Measle Free, I think it was. And, you know, suddenly I'm dealing and banking with this particular race that's a bit kind of like, you know, Wall Street with aliens. It's, you know, a nice little gimmick like that. But then on other cards, you have pickup and delivery options, as I said. So you have to go to a planet, you pick up this cargo, and then you have to get that cargo to another planet, as per the card, sorry. And when you do this, you know, you get victory points and a bonus and influence markers. The idea being that these influence markers are how you ally with races. Most influence markers, that's the ally. So, you know, allies can chop and change. You know, you might have got influence with one particular faction, and then suddenly somebody comes by, sticks more markers than you out, and suddenly it's like, you know what, we kind of like this guy more. He bought cake, you know, therefore we're going to go with him. It's like, there's definitely a bit of take that, but not too much. You can attack each other in this game, but it's not like you're constantly in each other's faces. If you want to avoid combat, you can do so. Get some units to defend your ships and just, you know, go off and do other things. And if someone does come by and want to smack you down, the worst it generally does is makes you retreat to a different city. Now granted, if you're on a planet, yeah, they'll get control of that planet, but if you're spending the whole game going off and getting other planets and allies, you'll be able to make up for the lost planets here and there, because there is a bit of back and forth with people taking control of allies and planets as well. So you don't have to be a warmonger in this game. Helps to do maybe a bit of both, but if you want to be a warmonger, go ahead. You want to be a pacifist and ally with every race you can find, go ahead. You just have to play in a different way. But yeah, attacking other players does not take them out of the game. It doesn't cripple you. You know, it's pretty easy to bounce back if someone does attack you. The one time it does feel a little bit mean though, and granted, you knew this going in, is the pick up and delivery aspect. Because when you pick up those cargo tokens, they can be plundered off you by other players. Thematically, that makes perfect sense. You're not friends with these other people here. You know, you want control of this galaxy. You see someone else going off with this nice cargo, it's like, ooh, you know, nice little shuttle just going on like with this tiny little cargo, and then suddenly, like the ending to, like the post-credit scene from Thor Ragnarok or something, it's just this little ship like and then suddenly this giant behemoth ship, Thanos' dreadnought or something, just appears out of nowhere, and it's just like, yeah, that cargo is give it to me. Give it to me. You knock them out, take the cargo and the card, and then you go off to another planet and deliver it for them. It's great the way that the theme can just work in this game. Now, with these space epic games, usually a lot of the time they have issues with the length and the downtime of the game. Now, this game tries to be shorter than a lot of those space epic games, and generally it is. This is one of the shorter ones I've played that has this much scope, but I wouldn't call this a short game. You know, especially for your first game where you're learning, because the rules themselves are not too complex, but there's a lot to get in your head, there's a lot to explain. Your first game is definitely going to be a learning experience, and it's going to take considerably longer as a result. You should be able to eventually, though, get this game down to, say, 2 hours. Maybe, 2 hours should be a decent length for this game once you know what you're doing, but accept that it could be anywhere from, say, maybe 90 minutes with a 2-player game all the way up to about 3 hours. Possibly even longer if you're going very slow or first game. But yeah, you're talking somewhere between about, I would say, 2 to 2.5 hours is the typical length you want for this game. And to be fair, compared to things like Exodus Proxima Centauri and Twilight Imperium 4, that's still a Space Empires 4X. This is still a fraction of the time it takes them to play their games. TI4, 6 hours later you might finish your game, and how much have you accomplished in that time? In 2 to 2.5 hours, you've accomplished a fair amount in this game, and it hasn't taken you the whole day. You can get on with other things. The downtime is also very well mitigated in this. The action selection, as I mentioned, you have 5 actions to pick from. Generally, you will know which action you're going to do. And even then, you'll only really be able to pick from 4 actions because you're not allowed to repeat the same one the previous player did. So you're choosing from 4 actions. Not too much. And on top of that, you have the thing that after you've done your action, the other players in clockwise order choose whether to follow, refresh, or do their own thing. Now, if they've been planning ahead, in which case they're engaged with the game, they know what they want to do instead, and they'll go off and do it. But if you haven't got the command, tokens, the command track high enough in order to do other actions, then you're choosing whether to copy or refresh. Refresh is 5 seconds. Move that up the track, get some money, get this back, there you go, done, refreshed. It keeps you engaged, but at least you know what you're getting. You're involved with the game. And if you copy the action, like say somebody decided they were going to research and build, it's like, oh, while you're researching that, you know what? Yeah, I'll just research this one quick. Because most of the time, you don't have to worry necessarily about what the other players are doing on certain actions. Research and build you can almost do simultaneously. Diplomacy is a bit different. Card actions definitely you want to do in turn order. Refreshing you can pretty much do simultaneously. And move and attack is obviously done in turn order. So there's kind of like 50-50, probably with more emphasis towards sticking to turn order rather than simultaneous gameplay, but you can do it every now and again. But the fact that you are acting after that other player, so it sort of takes place in rounds rather than turns, it keeps you engaged. The downtime is mitigated. I'm not going to say it's like stupidly short downtime, like you haven't got a chance to take 5, but compared to a lot of space epic games, this definitely has what I think is probably the, out of these big epic space games, one of the shortest downtimes that there is. Because if he's taking his turn, I know that straight after him, I'm going to act. And then when he's done, I'll take my main turn. And then after they've done their little refresh actions, he'll take his, and then it will come back round, and then I've got to do something else again. So you'll have some space between certain turns. I mean, as I say, if someone's just gone before you, you're going to get your bonus action quickly, and then instantly it will be your turn next. But then if the other player has gone, it's going to be a while before you act again. But again, it shouldn't take too long. So not stupidly short downtime, but mitigated to an extent. Now the game isn't entirely flawless. I mean, I'm gushing about a lot of things, but there are some negatives that I want to get across. Firstly, as much as this isn't as complicated as another, space epic game would be, it will take you a little bit to get through the rulebook. The rulebook is not bad. I think it's well laid out, it's in logical order, and there's a lot of examples and pictorial representations, but there's a lot to absorb. Moving and attacking can have lots of repercussions depending on whether the planet's got a control cube on it from a player, or it's an ally, or it's an enemy, or if you're in orbit, or if you're on the surface. There's a lot of little bits like that you kind of have to get ingrained in your system. So I don't recommend playing this game completely from scratch. You should ideally do your research and learn the rules before you teach this game, and if anybody else can watch a video, then even better. I've seen more complicated games, but this is not a pick up and play game by any stretch of the imagination. And certainly you want to take the time to really get the rules in your head, because you'd be surprised how many of the rules you can get wrong. You know, I got a couple of rules wrong on my first game. We corrected them halfway through, but it's like, oh yeah, I missed that one. And even though half the rulebook is a glossary, you know, kind of index, you know, like the detailed rules reference, when somebody asks you a question, it's not 100% intuitive to actually find where in that glossary you're supposed to look. You know, I never had a rule that I couldn't find the answer to. Or was there one? No, there was. I found that one eventually. But yeah, you should be able to at least find the answer to your question without too much trouble. And Board Game Geek has some pretty good FAQs on the subject. But yeah, it's not a super simple rulebook. You know, it could use, you know, a video run through by somebody, or it could just use a little bit of time and effort to really ingrain yourself in the rules. The other slight gripe is with the variety in the game. Now, the variety is good, but I wish more of it was used at once. Now, what I'm getting at here is, firstly, the planets and the races. You have, I think 8 on the board and maybe 1 or 2 that aren't. One of them is a variant, which is mostly based around combat, which I don't really like to use anyway. I don't want the game to be super combat heavy, so I leave that one out. So I'm only leaving out 1 planet each game, and even though they're randomized, you still have the same guys in the game, bar maybe 1 race. I would have liked maybe some more races, some more planets that we could use. Now maybe this is you know, shaping up for an expansion. I mean, this game is ripe for expansion. All you got to do is just give me more planets, more races, more buildings, you know, more technologies or whatever. Just give me more of the good stuff. Don't give me more mechanics, just give me more of the good stuff, and I'll be perfectly happy. It will be a solid expansion. But yeah, especially when the races they're different. Their abilities they give you are different, but their power ratings and combat stats are fairly similar across the board, you know. So it's more out of proximity rather than necessity that you're allying with a specific race. But still, you get that feeling that you are making friends with these races. Now, that's a minor part of it. The main part I have is with the event cards. In the power deck, you have event cards that you put in. You put in 1 for each planet. And it's, as soon as it comes out of the deck, an effect goes off. It goes on the planet tile, and something may happen, like for some reason a planet becomes a wormhole to every other planet on the board. Another one might be that if you go to that planet and then leave, you get infected with a fungus that transfers to other players, and it makes life harder to move. There might be a random monster, like a big Hydra thing that pops up in the oceans of one planet, and if you go and kill it, you get bonus reputation or influence with that faction. Now these are great. I love these events, but predominantly, I suppose the Kickstarter maybe added a few extra, but I think the retail's got a decent amount of them anyway. But I think when I counted, there was about 5 or 6 different events for each planet. You only use 1 of each planet in the game. Now this means that no game will ever play the same, really, realistically, with regards to having the same events from all the planets. But you're playing this game for a good couple of hours plus, and you're only using 1 out of 5 events. And chances are you might rinse repeat on a few times, so it's going to take you a long time to get through those events. Granted, that's good for variety. But I would have liked maybe to have had more events in the game, period. Now I got to get a move on here because I'm kind of running out of light, it seems. It's getting a bit dark. But, you know, just to say, if you're one of the people who has the first edition of Empires of the Void, then without the expansion, I still suggest pick this up. It is a big change, in art style, in component quality, even in the feel of the game. You're doing similar stuff to what you did before, but it's still got some fundamental changes. Granted, I do miss that giant tech tree that you had in the first game, and I do miss the fact that allying with a race got you a unique spaceship as opposed to just a soldier unit. Yeah, I miss that, but you know, I reckon that it's a solid upgrade from the first edition that warrants grabbing this one if you have the first. If you've got it with Key to the Universe, I still recommend getting this, but it's a bit of a narrower gap, because that really did help the game. If you've never heard of Empires of the Void, well, then you're never going to find the first edition anyway, so you better grab this one, because, like I say, it is a solid game. It does have those niggles. It could have been shorter. I think with expansions, with more sort of ways to use more of the content and maybe add more content, I think this could push up to a 10 for me. It could. It really could. For now, I think for me personally, this is still a solid 9. This is an excellent game. If you enjoy space epic style games, but you don't want to play them for 6 hours long, this is definitely one you should look at and definitely try. It may not be for everyone. I mean, no game is. You know, that's kind of a cop out, really. But still, if you like the theme, if you're into theme, you don't mind a little bit of luck with dice rolling, because there is a little bit of dice rolling, but you can mitigate it. There are ways to get around it, and it's not the be-all or end-all of the game. There are other ways to boost yourself in combat, etc. So if you're worried about too much luck, then, you know, don't be too disheartened by that. But, great theme, great components, sublime artwork, mitigated downtime, a length that doesn't outstay its welcome, except maybe if you're a first learning game, it does drag on a bit. But once you're comfortable with it, you'll be right as rain. You've just, I suppose, got to get past that little bit of a steep learning curve at first, and then you'll be rolling, and then you'll be enjoying this game, because it is solid. So, as I said, it's about a 9 for me. I really enjoy this. This is so staying in the collection. I don't have the first edition anymore, but I'm certainly going to get good times enjoying playing this one some more, and I look forward to some extra content from Ryan. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. So, that's it for me, and whether you're conquering alien races, and enslaving them, or just trying to make friends and have cups of tea, it's still only a game, so remember to head back to Earth at some point afterwards, okay? Take care, see you on the next, hopefully brighter Broken Meeple episode. See you soon, take care.
You get looking.